Well, today we're at a healthy sized parking area slash camping area on Lovell Canyon Road, Upper Lovell Canyon Road in, of course, Lovell Canyon, Nevada. And this canyon is actually the canyon just west of Red Rock Canyon. And the location is off of Highway 160 between Las Vegas and Pahrump. So, beautiful little canyon. Now, we've been focusing on the Wilson Ridge. And the Wilson Ridge is up in this direction. And it's characterized by a number of approach ridges. It takes a couple hours, at least 2 to 3 hours, to get up to the Wilson Ridge. It's very isolated. And the ridge itself is broken up by a number of pinnacles. And we've looked at some of the pinnacles. You can see that on LasVegasAreaTrails.com. Anyway, instead of just traversing the entire ridge, it seems more logical to take the approach ridges. Each pinnacle has an approach ridge. And so we've taken a number of approach ridges, 3 approach ridges north of Rocky Gap Road, and landed on the Wilson Ridge. Today, we're just north of the 3rd approach ridge, which is over this sign, and it's in the sun, so you're not going to see a whole lot of it. But yeah, here's a little bit more of it. Okay, that's the 3rd approach ridge. And there's a valley between those 2 approach ridges. We're going to take this valley up to the Wilson Ridge. And the reason for this is that we've wanted to make a passage between Lovell Canyon and Red Rock Canyon. And there's a low point in the ridge up ahead, somewhere up in this direction. And theoretically, you can go over the canyon and over the ridge between Lovell Canyon, Red Rock Canyon, and land in the Switchback Spring area. So let's see if we can make that happen. The trick is going to be to hit the Wilson Ridge at the exact low point. And it's going to be hard to see where that low point is, because instead of being on a ridge, we're going to be in a valley. So here we go. Let's see what happens. Okay, I was suspecting that because this is a low valley we're going through, there might actually be some kind of a trail. And here we are at the other side of that parking area. And there are a number of options as to where to head upward. This looks like the widest pathway. So let's start here. And we don't want to head north. We want to find the pathway that's going to head more toward the east. So it's going to be a little experimentation here with low visibility because we're in a valley. But here's a beautiful example of tumbleweed. You see it blowing around on the highways, across trails, roads in Nevada, and it's pretty much a signature icon of Nevada. Okay, I was hoping for a trail through this this gully valley wash, and it looks like I might have found one. So this could be a good thing. Of course, any trails here are pretty much unmarked. But look at this. Somebody put a little work into this one. It could just be for a camping area, or it could be something that leads to a trail. We'll find out. Well, somebody had a lot of time to decorate this. Look at this. Wow. This is like the Taj Mahal of camping areas. Will it lead to a trail that's going to take us through the canyon? Or this wash, I guess. We don't know. But let's continue on, see if we can find something out here. Okay, I'm trying not to stray too far north. There's the sun, which would be more toward the east. And here's a little cairn. I'm in a wash, and let's just see where this wash takes us. This could be the key right here, or it could be something that's going to lead to a brush-choked dead end. Let's find out. This wash seems promising. The sun is still just a little bit to my right. Not too much, which means that I am roughly heading east, which is good. The wash is pretty wide open. And up ahead, there is a ridgeline. And there are a number of little washes that head up toward that ridgeline. We don't want to do that. That was the ridgeline we were on earlier that headed up to what I call the North Twin Mini Matterhorn Pinnacle. And this is hopefully going to lead around the left side of that ridge ahead. So let's keep angling that way and see if we can accomplish that. Still in the wash, running a bit blind because we're so low in the forest. I know this wash is definitely, this is looking down the wash now. The wash is definitely leading upward, hopefully toward an opening, but there might be a split that goes off to the north, and that's not going to help us. So I'm going to climb this ridge right here, see if I can get a better view of where we are. Okay, now I've got my bearings a little better, and see some familiar landmarks. There is what I call the Wilson Ridge South High Point, the North High Point being Harris Mountain. But the Wilson Ridge does continue south from there. It's just that there are no more 8,500 foot high points. Okay, so we want to be heading up in this direction, and the way is fairly nice. Another landmark is the ridge that I took earlier, the third ridge from Rocky Gap Road, third ridge north of Rocky Gap Road. There you can see a little bit of it, and there it is right under the rising sun. Doesn't help much to look at it there, but the point I'm making is that I want to try and navigate close to the base of that ridge, because that's where the opening is to the top of the Wilson Ridge and a potential descent into Red Rock Canyon. So yeah, let's continue in this direction and keep watching for a passageway that should be right in this direction here. Okay, here's a better view of our target. You can see a high point to the right. That's the Wilson Ridge, descending toward a lower saddle in the ridge. And there's where it resumes its elevation on the other side of the saddle. It's on the left or north. And then you can see where it winds around to what we call the Wilson Ridge Southern High Point, which is right there. So I can see now that I have strayed a little bit too much to the south side of this gully, which is fine because it gives me kind of a guide. I want to shoot for this area. By the way, this is probably going to be the last day that I can do Wilson Ridge till next spring. So this would be nice to be able to find a way over the ridge by today, so that next spring I can pick up and fill in the gaps in the Wilson Ridge between all these high points that I've ascended to. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to need to descend a little bit. I did navigate a little. I strayed a little too much to the right or the south. So now I need to go over this little ridge line ahead and then find the route upward. And I think that's going to be right between these two ridge lines. You see that high point, just a moment. Okay, you see that high point right in the center? I want to be navigating along the base, along the right, to the right of that high point. And I think that's where my opening is going to be. If I stray too far toward this area up here, I'll find a situation where there is no descent into Red Rock Canyon. So I think this is my key, is just navigate, take a right at the base of that ridge on the horizon. And there's a canyon there, and that is the ticket. So here we go. Let's figure out a way to get there. Okay, to my wilderness navigation sense, this looks like a faint trail. Now, my theory is that the low point in the Wilson Ridge I'm heading toward, and this is looking back, and you can see where it's kind of a trail, but it hasn't been used in many years. The low point in the Wilson Ridge that I'm heading for would be a natural route between Red Rock Canyon and Lovell Canyon, with a lot of high points in between, which because of these high points, there would be some great dwelling places to escape the summer heat. And there should be signs of ancient passage here between Red Rock Canyon and Lovell Canyon. That's just a wild hunch. And a lot of these places here would have been just beautiful, high, cool summer dwellings. So, yeah, we don't know what we're going to find up here, but wouldn't it be great if we actually stumbled upon something? Let's continue. Okay, I may be letting my imagination go a little bit wild here in search of some kind of um, ancient area, dwelling area, but you see a series of trees that have been placed almost parallel, and you don't see the root area of that tree. So that would tend to indicate that maybe they fell up above and were dragged to this point to designate different dwelling areas. Now, of course, this may be really wild conjecture, but it just looks a little bit too suspicious. And this area itself is just a beautifully level area, and there are open passageways through the brush that lead to and from the area. So just a thought, maybe someone who did this more recently will be looking at this video and saying, nope, it's modern, but we don't know. So we're continuing along, but a lot of very beautiful open area here that could have been used for winter camping and or winter dwelling. And the elevation here is much higher than in Red Rock Canyon or Lovell Canyon below. So let's continue on. More high potential dwelling spots. Almost looks like rocks have been placed a long time ago in this area. But of course we don't know. It's all just a guess. But one thing I can say is that our opening is somewhere on the left or north side of this ridge, and you can't see the next ridge through the trees, but this is a saddle area that we're in. We're approaching what would be the best, most hopeful traverse over the Wilson Ridge. Well, this is not a good sign. Here's a deer that did not make it. Here's the head. You can see the eye sockets. Here's part of the body. And here is the hoof. So yeah, it's a pretty wild environment here. And either it was killed by a mountain lion or it just died of old age. We don't know. Anyway, we're continuing up, and when I reach the next opening, I'll be able to identify our target on the Wilson Ridge, low point crossover to Red Rock Canyon. Okay, up here on this ridge, in the middle of nowhere, we find something that is really strange that you wouldn't expect here on this ridge, isolated ridge. There's an irrigation system. And here you can see the main irrigation pipe, and then smaller irrigation nozzles. Looks like the irrigation system you might find in your yard. And then continuing on, and this really is in the middle of nowhere. Here is a little fence. Let's just cross over this. Yeah, question is, what would you be irrigating up here? Big question. Looks like there's some rocks that have been moved. Definitely not a historic Native American site, but something a little more modern. Whoops. Here's a little wire. And we can only hope that I don't come across any trip wires, because I just ran into that one. I would not do very well in a battlefield situation. I would have blown myself up earlier. But yeah, following the irrigation system and the little fence that continues on for some time here. Yeah, if it was just a water pipe, one would think that, well, maybe it's a water source for someplace below. But no, it is actually a whole irrigation system in this fenced off area. Now I'm at the top of the area. Interesting, it heads up in that direction. Maybe we'll go a little further. Nope, the pipe continues off in this direction too. That's a real puzzle. Maybe somebody watching this video can tell me who set up the irrigation system and why. Maybe they were growing a crop up here. Maybe they just wanted to keep the forest area in this area green. We don't know. It's a total mystery. Fire rings. Okay. Well, let's continue up the gully below there. And to make the picture even more complete, here are some plant stakes that have been piled up at the irrigation system. Just amazing. And it looks like they almost had netting between them, which would lead to the idea that there's some kind of vine that would grow on these stakes and on the fence that they made. Who knows? Okay, that's enough of this. Here's that tripwire. Okay, onward. Okay, a quick note. It's always good to know your return route. Looks like there are a number of possibilities. There's a little ridge right up here that could actually be a nice return ridge. I usually find on the return that it's a lot easier because things are more visible. There are some cliffs on the Wilson Ridge. I know that's too far north, so I want to be to the right of those cliffs when I hit the Wilson Ridge. And there you can see the Wilson Ridge beyond. So actually, yeah, this descent ridge here could be a nice brush-free return, because the place I want to return to is where CC Spring Road meets with Lovell Canyon Road, and it's right down in this area. Maybe you can see, if you look carefully, you can see CC Spring Road. There, I think, is a little section of CC Spring Road. And there's a ridge line we'll want to explore at some point. And there's the beginning of the Sexton Ridge. So yeah, we're getting a lot higher in elevation. So yeah, let's see if we can angle much further to the right of this cliff line on the Wilson Ridge. Here's something that looks like a fire ring. Or some kind of purposely marked off area on this ridgeline I'm on now. And here's a higher view. I'll point out some of the reference points. There's the Wilson Ridge South High Point, leading up to the Wilson Ridge North High Point at Harris Mountain. And now you can see the Saddle and then Griffith Peak. And then down Sexton Ridge. And down this canyon I've been ascending. There's CC Spring Road. That's across Lovell Canyon on the west side. And it looks like it continues way up here. There we go. So that will be a good adventure. See what's up that way. And then this is the ridge that I ascended to what I refer to as the Mini Matterhorn North Twin. There's Twin Peaks up there, just north of Red Rock Summit. And this is not the summit of the ridge, the Wilson Ridge, but it's actually a high point before the summit. And you can look on that page on LasVegasAreaTrails.com to see where we ascended that ridge and then that high point and then descended and then reascended to the summit. And so that completes the circuit of where we are here. You can recognize these points that I just pointed out. And what looks like a good descent ridge would actually be this ridge just to the north. That looks like it could take us all the way from the Wilson Ridge down without being in the gully. So, like I said, it's always easier to determine your return route than it is to find the route to a location like we're doing right now. Okay, now we're clearly on an approach ridgeline, which is just north of this approach ridgeline that we took earlier to get to the Mini Matterhorn North Twin Pinnacle. And there you can see that would be the summit up there. And then you can see where the ridge line takes a plunge, gets pretty rocky, and then continues on. And what we want to do is meet up with the Wilson Ridge line below this rocky section. So what I'm going to do is continue up this ridge through the forest, see if I can find openings, get to this next high point, and I think we'll know at that point where everything is that we can't see right now. The only thing I can see that I can recognize besides that ridge line to the south is Griffith Peak. So it always helps to know where all the reference points are. Onward. Okay, you can see this ridge I'm on, and we trace it down to CC Spring Road on the other side of Lovell Canyon Road. And this makes the terrain a lot more familiar. There's the ridge I was on earlier that leads up to the Mini Matterhorn North Twin Summit, which is right up here. And I've got video from that observation area just below that summit to the left. So you can actually see where the ridge dips before it makes its final approach to the Wilson Ridge. So that really helps to, let's trace it down now. So tracing that ridge downward, it would lead down to the CC Spring Road area. And then here's another ridge. This is a much lower ridge. We're tracing it upward now. It's in the immediate foreground. So that's another approach, but I think that leads up to the cliff section rather than where we want to be. So I think I'm on the right ridge. There is the South High Point on the Wilson Ridge. North High Point, which is Harris Mountain. Saddle to Griffith Peak. And then down Sexton Ridge. And you can actually see Lovell Summit Road now. So we've attained a lot of altitude here. There's Lovell Summit Road leading up, hopefully, to the base of Sexton Ridge. We'll take that at some point. And then we've got this whole area in the CC Spring area to explore also in that ridge line on the horizon. So there's a lot more to explore in Lovell Canyon. But it looks almost like we're on a little trail. Look at that. Well, to me, it looks like a trail. And then heading down this way. Yeah, that's why the return trip could be a lot easier, because maybe I can find where this little trail heads down and goes all the way to Lovell Canyon Road eventually. That would really be nice. Okay, so let's continue on upward and get to where we can get a good look at the Wilson Ridge. Okay, a little more of a view has opened up here. We want to head toward that high point, which is a bald spot. That may be on the Wilson Ridge. We don't know. But if it's not, then there's another high point there. One thing I can guarantee is that this ridge line over here is indeed on the Wilson Ridge. See that rocky area? And there's the approach ridge to that mini Matterhorn North Twin, two twin peaks north of Red Rock Summit. So let's get up to this next height, and I bet we'll be able to see the Wilson Ridge and maybe even get a look down into Red Rock Canyon. Now here's something, looks like a collapsed structure, and here you can see all the bases of the trunks of the tree are pointing outward, which tends to lead to the conclusion that this did not happen naturally. And yeah, and there wouldn't be this much brush all in one spot. So this was created but a long time ago and has since collapsed. I would say, boy, that could be the 1800s, early 1900s maybe. You might remember the miner's cabin in the La Madre Springs area. It looked a little more recent than this. So that would be one way of dating what we're looking at here. Okay, continuing on up to the next high point. Okay, here's a good shot of the Twin Peaks. I don't know if we'll get as good a shot of both of them when we get up closer to the Wilson Ridge. But there's the one on the north, call it the mini Matterhorn Pinnacle North Twin. And it looks like a pinnacle on all sides, except this side. And then here's the mini Matterhorn Pinnacle. Both of them make up the twin pinnacles, and then looking down, that approach ridge that we took to the North Pinnacle, the North Twin. And just a quick look around. You're looking west now across Lovell Canyon. Great shot of Lovell Canyon. Let's see, it's the Lovell Summit Road. There you can see it winding upward toward the base of the Sexton Ridge. And then on up to Griffith Peak and Harris Mountain. And hopefully we'll get a much better view when we get higher up on this ridge and we hit the Wilson Ridge. But as you can see, there's a bit of brush to encounter. Well, I think I found something like 50 sites on this ridge line and the gully below, the wash below, that could very well have qualified as living sites at some point. You can see how the tree branches almost enclose this site right here. There are many more just like it. And this would be from a long time ago. You can't see, another key is that you can't see where the trunk of the tree was. And that seems to indicate that the trees have been moved from there where they originally fell. Okay, we're standing on that bald spot we saw earlier. And as I predicted, yeah, great views. There on the right, you can see the Twin Peak summits. And then you're looking down into the canyon between Wilson Ridge and the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. Yeah, pretty much straight down. Now let's just continue the horizon here. Here is Bridge Mountain. And to the right of Bridge Mountain would be North Peak. Very windy up here. And to the left of Bridge Mountain is that area called, I call it Paradise Plateau. It is so beautiful up there. And then sticking to the horizon, now you're looking into the Las Vegas Valley. Let's see if I can nail the location of the strip. That's the Las Vegas Strip. And down here you're seeing the Calico Hills in Red Rock Canyon. Then in the foreground, White Rock Mountain. Turtlehead Peak. Damsel Peak, also called Pincushion Peak. Then this is the very point ahead where the Wilson Ridgeline, which I'm standing on, splits off to the right onto the La Madre Ridgeline. But here, you can't see the La Madre Ridgeline from here. It's just over the center of the screen here, those cliffs. And then continuing along the Wilson Ridgeline, you can see some high points. Here's the southern high point, and then the Wilson Ridge continuing up to the northern high point at Harris Mountain. Harris Mountain about 10,013 feet, southern high point about 8,500. We're probably about 7,500 or so in this area. Okay, and then over to Griffith Peak, down Sexton Ridge, over to the west side of Lovell Canyon. Here's Lovell Summit Road. And then straight west on Lovell, over Lovell Canyon, and you can see CC Spring Road. Let's see if I can nail that. It's a little more difficult. Lots of glare on the screen. Ah, there we go. That's CC Spring Road. And by the way, we started out today at the base of CC Spring Road. And then here's that approach ridge taken earlier to the Mini Matterhorn North Twin Peak or Pinnacle. And then round again to the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. And I'll do a silent circle. Oh, by the way, yeah, Potosi Mountain. across Highway 160. Okay, here's the circuit. And hopefully you recognized all those locations that I pointed out. Now, here's another important reference point. You see the Wilson Ridge here? And then let's follow it down into the canyon where Rocky Gap Road is. And here you can see that ridge. I called it the Switchback Spring Ridge. And there it is, leading down into Lovell Canyon. And the weak point to the Wilson Ridge, which I'm standing on, would be just below us. And is there a descent point there? Or is it all cliffs and you can't descend? If you can descend, then I can make a circuit that I call Switchback Spring South Circuit. Then I'd come up here and make a north circuit. The south circuit would go up Rocky Gap Road to Lovell Canyon Road, over to CC Spring, come up to this point, and back down to Rocky Gap Road. And here is the Switchback Spring Canyon. And there's the switchbacks on Rocky Gap Road, from which the springs get their name. So there you have it. A lot of this wilderness area. And then I guess I could go way across the Las Vegas Valley where we'd see that double humped mountain, very distant beyond the Las Vegas Valley. That would be Frenchman Mountain. And to the left of Frenchman Mountain would be Sunrise Mountain. And I don't even know if I nailed them both because there's too much glare on the screen. So I think I pointed out most of what I know in this area. There's a whole lot more, but let's go ahead and head down here and just look over the edge to see if there is indeed a pathway down into to that Switchback Spring Ridge that would then take us easily to Rocky Gap Road. And we stood at this point and looked upward to check out this potential route. So let's just go down a little ways. We'll look over the edge, then maybe we'll return back home. There's a pretty tame section of the Wilson Ridge, as the Wilson Ridge goes. There's just a little saddle, shallow saddle between two small high points. Normally the Wilson Ridge is not like this. Most of the Wilson Ridge is pinnacle after pinnacle. You can see a couple high points above. But this is pretty easy going right here. Another camping or historic dwelling area up on this very friendly, wide ridgeline with a lot of level areas to camp or live during the hot summer months, especially if you're coming up from Red Rock Canyon. And we're going to see if we can find a connection down to Rocky Gap Road and Red Rock Canyon, which would seem to indicate, if we can find it, that that could have been a route people took to come up to this altitude during the hot summer months. Okay, in search of a potential candidate for descent to the Rocky Gap Road area, and you can see lots of cliffs, so we're not seeing a lot right now, but it looks as if there might be a little trail right in this area. I'm not super hopeful as to the status of that trail or descent route. Another route would be right down between these two high points. You see a gully here. I'll trace it down. Possible, but wow. I'm not feeling real excited about trying that right now. Okay, here's the summit of that other potential descent point that we looked at just a while back. But wow, loose rock, and oh boy, it sure looks like it's leading toward the edge of a cliff where you're standing on loose rock and thinking, do I want to proceed? So let's go a little bit further along here and see if there's something a little lower. And I think closer to this rock along the base of it, there might be, at least it looked like on the map, that there could be a more gradual descent point. Okay, we're approaching a low point in the Wilson Ridge. If there is a passageway leading down to Rocky Gap Road, it would be right in this area in front of that pointy rock right in the center. So let's get over there and see what we can see. Okay, let's do a quick 360 up here. There's the North Pinnacle, the North Twin Pinnacle. And we're looking straight at that point that either in front or behind this rocky area would be the best hope for a descent point. So we're gonna go there and take a look. I can pretty much guarantee you've never seen images from this perspective on the Wilson Ridge. Yeah, and you can see what you'd need to do to get up to that high point pinnacle. I'll trace it down, North Pinnacle. Looks doable, but not too incredibly friendly. Okay, let's take a look around this rock, this little pinnacle. Okay, this little mini pinnacle, we'll call it Switchback Spring Mini Pinnacle, or Summit Pinnacle. If there is a way down to Rocky Gap Road, it would be right down this area. And you can see it on the map if you look at the map. Now I'm on the edge of something, so I don't want to get too much into trying to get every perspective possible, because there is a huge drop off here. But there you can see Switchback Spring Canyon. And theoretically, if you headed up Switchback Spring Canyon, got to the base of this area here, you could ascend to Switchback Spring Mini Pinnacle. And then you've made your passageway between Lovell Canyon and Red Rock Canyon. There you can see Red Rock Canyon. Here's a great view of the La Madre Ridgeline and the Wilson Ridgeline. You can see La Madre splitting off to the right or east. Wilson Ridgeline is going to continue over that high point ahead and continue toward Harris Mountain. So there you have a good idea of the area. White Rock Mountain, of course, immediately below, almost immediately. And there's Calico Hills. If I don't get blown off this ledge, a lot of wind. So yeah, I'm going to, in my next attempt, I'll come from below, because if I can get up to this point from below, I could ascend all the way up through this opening. So that'll be the next challenge. And I did want to today to see this opening, to see what it looked like up at this altitude from above. And this is the most promising opening right in front of us, between those two pinnacles. And then down Switchback Spring Canyon to Rocky Gap Road and the Switchback area. So there you have it. And since this week is 30 degrees cooler than last week, I'm expecting that the temperature is only going to get more and more cool. And so it's probably going to be next spring before I come back up here and make another attempt at the Wilson Ridge and this crossing at Switchback Spring. And still looking for a name for this adventure, but Switchback Canyon Summit Pinnacle looks like a great name for this adventure. And this reference point. And there's Switchback Canyon. And by the way, more camping spots up here, makeshift fire breaks. So this is what the terrain looks like up here. What we're going to do is now head to that bald summit we were on a bit ago, and then head down the ridge to Lovell Canyon Road. Okay, now tracing my way back to that bald hill, which I think is somewhere right up here. Can't see, too much glare on the screen. But I go to the bald hill, take a left and head down that ridge, and then down the canyon back to Lovell Canyon Road. And there you can see the view north on the Wilson Ridge. Okay, here we are back on what I'll call Bald Summit Hill, and where we went was the next hill over, and then down the other side of that hill over to right above that area where there is the potential descent. And it looks like that's possible. I have to try it from the bottom up, because I know what point I need to get to in order to know that I can make it all the way up. And then just looking around, there's our target. It's CC Spring Road, and we're at the bottom of CC Spring Road. It connects with Lovell Canyon Road. I hope you can see it. I can't see it. Too much glare. And just a quick look around. There's the Wilson Ridge Southern High Point. And I've actually made it all the way from Harris Mountain down to the other side of this point, and then descended on the north side of this point. So there's a lot of stretches here that I still need to work out, but it's just a matter of filling in the dots at this point on the Wilson Ridge. Yeah, the lighting for the strip is much better. There's the full circuit. Let's head down this ridge, and my understanding from the trip up the ridge is that you hang closer to the north side, the right side on the way down, and there'd be more wide open area. Okay, another spot where we're seeing this pipe, and it looks almost like it could be a sprinkler system as a fire break. We don't know, but yeah. Well, let's continue down into the gully and then down the gully to our start point on Lovell Canyon Road and CC Spring Road. Well, if you're wondering where I am, here's a little marker in the middle of nowhere. If you have a Department of Agriculture map, you'll know exactly where I am. Okay, let's continue on down. Here's a little spring. Now, I saw a spring on the map earlier, and I'll identify that when I look at the map again. But this would be that spring. Now, this is the third week in October, and so this should be the driest week of the year, or the driest season of the year before the winter rains start. And as you can see, during this dry season, this little spring is still flowing, which means it's probably year-round. Okay, I decided to ascend the ridge above the gully. I like ridges, they have better views, and also they tend to be less convoluted than gullies. There's the ridge just south of us. That's the one that leads up to the North Twin Pinnacle. And then this ridge would, yeah, this should be interesting to see where this ridge empties out, because it's a very gradual ridge for much of the way, and this could actually be a good future route up to the Wilson Ridge. So okay, down we go. Another advantage of being on this ridge rather than down in the gully is to look at the view of the Wilson Ridge above us. There's the South High Point. There's Harris Mountain. And Griffith Peak. So, yeah. And then here's the terrain. I think I've been in part of this terrain already earlier. But yeah, this looks like a really nice potential approach ridge. Let's just see where it empties out onto Lovell Canyon Road. And there's more visible here. There we can look up to that bald summit point that we were on earlier on the Wilson Ridge. And I want to show you a saddle, a low point. There we go. That's the low point saddle we were on, and there is what we called the Switchback Spring Summit Pinnacle. So there's pretty much the whole story of where we were on the Wilson Ridge. From this bald point, bald hill, across the top of the ridge, and over to that little saddle right before the Switchback Spring Canyon Summit Pinnacle. It's a pinnacle right at the summit of Switchback Spring Canyon on the Red Rock Canyon side. And then, of course, here's the other ridge we were on earlier. Took us up to the North Twin Pinnacle. So there's a whole lot of the wilderness area here at the base of the Wilson Ridge that we've seen. Okay, let's continue on down this ridge, see where it empties out. Another thing I like about ridges over gullies is that you're more likely to find pathways on the ridge. Can actually do a little running. See how smooth this is? But yeah, the paths can disappear on you, but you'll find another one if you keep looking. Now it's just a matter of getting down this ridge to Lovell Canyon Road and CC Spring Road, and there it is right there. Okay, down we go. Look at this, a real trail. We must be closing in on Lovell Canyon Road and should be coming out very close to the place where we entered Lovell Canyon Road. So, I mean where we left Lovell Canyon Road. I think I'm getting a little loopy because of the exertion and the altitude. Okay, so yeah, we're going to continue on and find ways to angle over toward Lovell Canyon Road down that way. It's always my goal to come out through the wilderness, emerge from the wilderness at exactly the same point that I entered. Let's see how close we are. We should be seeing the beast possibly when we emerge into this area, which means we hit it exactly. And what do you know? There's the beast on Lovell Canyon Road. So somehow we emerged the exact same location that we left. So a quick review of what we've accomplished today. We started out here on Lovell Canyon Road, this large parking area, just short of CC Spring Road, which is right over here. And we ascended, well, we started out in a gully, then we ascended a ridge line and ended up just north of a low point on the Wilson Ridge where we think there's a crossing over to Rocky Gap Road. And it looks like that's possible. The place that we ended up, we called the Switchback Spring Canyon Summit Pinnacle. I'll shorten that. But anyway, it's the pinnacle at the summit of Switchback Spring Canyon. And it's, if you can descend the canyon there, you end up on Rocky Gap Road and can make a big circuit. And we'll try that when we're not spending so much time looking at the various potential dwelling sites that we did see on the ridge. We saw a number of potential dwelling sites and a number of great campsites. So there you have it. And we'll return, see if we can make that crossing. Maybe this spring we'll make that crossing to Rocky Gap Road from here. Quick final note, since this is the last time on the Wilson Ridge till next spring, let's review what we've discovered. We've spent a lot of time on the Wilson Ridge, and it's much more broken up, many more high pinnacles than the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline, and also just getting to the Wilson Ridgeline almost finishes your experience. You're ready to turn around once you reach the Wilson Ridgeline, because just about every approach ridge, and we're looking at one of those approach ridges now, just about every approach ridge is 2,500 to 3,000 foot ascent and 2 to 3 miles. So yeah, sometimes it feels like it's time to turn around, but I think that I've spent a lot of time on these approach ridges, and the result is that there are a whole lot of different approaches that one could take. And when I send these approach ridges in the future, I'll be able to turn them into loops, because I won't be spending so much time looking at the ridge, looking for dwellings and other sites that are unique. But what I'll be doing is getting to the Wilson Ridgeline and then traversing that ridgeline. I'll have a lot more time to traverse the ridgeline. But just a quick review of the different approach ridges. So the lowest one is the one that ends up at Little Zion. And you can see all of these on Las Vegas area trails. I'll try to name them by the names that they are on LasVegasAreaTrails.com. So the approach to Little Zion, then there's another approach a little higher that goes up to Mount Wilson. Lovell Canyon to Mount Wilson would be the name of that. And then there's Rocky Gap Road, and just going up Rocky Gap Road to the Bridge Mountain Trailhead. After that, there's the ridge just north of Rocky Gap Road that leads to what I call the Knife's Edge Pinnacle, and then you turn north and you hit Red Rock Summit. Then the next approach ridge north of that leads up to what I call the Mini Matterhorn Pinnacle. And there's a twin pinnacle, so there's another approach ridge, which is the one we're looking at right now. That leads to the north twin of the Mini Matterhorn Pinnacle. And then here is another approach north of that that leads to what I call this Switchback Canyon Summit Pinnacle. And then north of this would lead to the Southern High Point, the Wilson Ridge Southern High Point. And then north of that would be up Lovell Canyon, and then up to the Wilson Ridge and summiting Harris Mountain. So those are a lot of different approaches to the Wilson Ridge. And what that enables is, any place that you are on the Wilson Ridge, if you know these approach ridges, and they're all gradual, they're all nice, they're class 2 walk. If you know where the nearest approach ridge is, you can always exit the Wilson Ridge and get back down to Lovell Canyon Road. So that's the goal. That was my first step in decoding the Wilson Ridge. The second step then would be to traverse the Wilson Ridge, maybe do some loops from one approach to the next, and I'll always have a close approach ridge to exit the Wilson Ridge at any point. So anyway, that's my Wilson Ridge strategy at this point. I don't think the Wilson Ridge is the type of ridge that you could go from all the way from its low point beginning at just a little above Highway 160 and Potosi Mountain. I don't think you could go all the way up the Wilson Ridge like you can the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline, because it goes all the way up to Harris Mountain, so it's a lot longer. It's about 500, average of about 500 feet higher, and then there are pinnacles and gaps on the Wilson Ridge that will stop you or eat up a lot of time. So the Wilson Ridge is a lot more complicated than the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. However, one really beautiful thing about the Wilson Ridge is all the sights, all the scenes that you can see from the Wilson Ridge and its approach ridges are very unique. It's very seldom traveled, and so you're likely to see a lot of really cool stuff on the Wilson Ridge and its approach ridges, and a lot of unique views that very few people see. So love the Wilson Ridge. I think it should be its own wilderness area. It is so vast and amazing. And you add the approach ridges, it's just incredible as a wilderness area. But as it stands, it's between a couple wilderness areas, the Lovell Canyon and Rainbow Mountains. Okay, that should do it for this season on the Wilson Ridge.